edamame in our vegetable garden is ready for harvest. Now, edamame is essentially a green soybean. It's harvested when the seeds are slightly immature as compared to soybeans that are harvested for production. In that case, the seeds are actually allowed to dry on the plant before they're harvested. But for fresh eating, we want to harvest green, slightly immature pods. So what we look for is the pod to start to fill out and yet still has a nice green color like we have here. When you're kind of looking at the plant, trying to determine if they're ready to harvest, you could just open a couple pods. They're actually fairly difficult to open. They have a fibrous covering, but you can look for the seeds and see if they're starting to plump and fill. Now, some of the edamame you might have had at restaurants might be larger because not all varieties are the same. So keep that in mind when you're evaluating your plants. But you do want to catch them before they start to yellow. I have over here just a slightly older planting. You can see the foliage is starting to turn yellow and brown, and even the pods are getting a bit of a yellow and rusty color. These are past their prime for fresh eating. When the pods mature like this, the seeds inside are getting starchy, they're losing their sweetness, and they're becoming hard. This is great, if you're going to be processing the beans, but not so good for eating. So what I'll do with those, since they're a little bit beyond, is just save those for seed for next year's crop. But these I'm going to go ahead and harvest, and you just simply pick the pods from the plant. And the beans mature over the course of about 7 days. And so you might come out for about 2 separate pickings. If some of them look like they're not quite mature, you can leave them on a few more days to harvest. Now, if you're not into squatting down to harvest beans, because as you can see, there are a lot of pods on this plant, an alternate is to just simply cut the plant at the base, and then, or you can tear it out of the ground, depending on your style, and then you can harvest those standing up, working at a table, or in a more comfortable position. The disadvantage of this, of course, is that any pods that aren't quite filled just get harvested a little smaller. You don't get that option of a second harvest window. But the advantage, of course, would be comfort. Now, edamame is great eaten fresh, and it could be just a finger food. My kids absolutely love it. Or you could cook it in many different ways, in soups, have it in salads, stir fries, the list goes on and on. Now, I did mention that pod is pretty tough. It is not edible, only the seeds inside. And you will need to blanch or steam the pods to have easier access to remove those seeds.